So good morning, everyone, and welcome to Introduction to Individual Giving. This is the last workshop in our Diversify Your Funding series. I hope you've enjoyed the previous classes so far. So I'm Caitlin Seifertz, the Nonprofit Services Supervisor at the Regional Foundation Center, and I'll be leading today's class. And then before we get started, do just want to go over some logistics, same as the past couple weeks, but we are recording today's session, and I will get that recording out to you within 48 hours, but most likely this afternoon. Jillian is going to share a resource guide in the chat. That resource guide has links to all the information I'm going to be talking about today, so please feel free to refer to that. And then, as usual, if anything comes up as we're going through today's workshop that isn't already included in that resource guide, then I'll make sure to add it, and I'll include the link to that guide in the follow-up email to all of you. And if you're having any issues, please feel free to use the chat box. If you have any questions, you can use that. Jillian will be monitoring the chat box. If you're having any tech issues or questions about the resource guide, she can answer those. But I will also be stopping a few times throughout the presentation to answer any questions that have come up. But feel free to add those questions as you think of them. Everyone is currently muted. That way we can just cut down on any background noise. But at the end of today's session, I'll allow people to unmute themselves. So if you prefer to ask your questions verbally, you're welcome to do that. Lastly, at the end of today's session, I will be providing a link to a program evaluation. Again, we'd love to hear your feedback about today's workshop. I'd also love to hear if you have been to, some or all of the workshops in this series. If you liked doing this as a series, if you didn't come to all the workshops, that's fine. But just want to kind of get a sense of how people feel about grouping similar classes together in a series. So as usual, we really love to hear your feedback. It just helps us improve our workshops. And then for any of you who are joining us for the first time, just want to briefly talk about who we are and what we do. So the Regional Foundation Center is a nonprofit resource center at the Free Library of Philadelphia. And we have been serving Philly's nonprofit community for almost 50 years, so since 1974. Gearing up to celebrate our 50-year anniversary pretty soon. But we support the nonprofit community by connecting nonprofit professionals to high-quality research databases, one-on-one research appointments, and then free workshops. So all of our programs and appointments are currently virtual, though we are starting to dip our toe into in-person programs starting next month. I'm going to mention one of those later on in today's workshop. But our space is open, and I definitely recommend you come check us out. We're located within the Business Resource and Innovation Center, or as we like to call it, the BRIC, and you can see a picture of the BRIC on the screen here. So we are 8,000 square feet of space. We have comfortable furniture, free Wi-Fi, and meeting rooms that you can reserve. So it's a really great space to check out if you're looking for kind of a change of scenery. You want to get out of the office, whether that's your home office or if you're working on site, definitely come and check us out. We're currently open Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then I do just want to briefly mention how we fit into the Candid world. So many of you have probably heard of Foundation Center or GuideStar in the past. And those two organizations merged in 2019 to create a new organization called Candid. So as leaders in the world of philanthropic data, the merger of these two organizations just means even more data is being collected on the philanthropic sector. And then as far as how we relate to Candid, we are part of Candid's Funding Information Network, a network of libraries, community foundations, and nonprofit resource centers across the globe where you can access databases, print materials, and free classes. And just like with the other workshops we've done in this series, I'm not able to share the slides with you because they are provided by Candid, but really all the kind of highlights we're going to be talking about today are included in your resource guide. I also want to mention another partnership and one of the reasons why we're able to offer this training, and that is because of a partnership between Fundraising Academy and Candid. So Fundraising Academy helps nonprofits to significantly increase their fundraising capabilities and the impact they have on their communities and society through their cause selling education curriculum. which we're going to be talking about today and sharing with you thanks to Fundraising Academy's partnership with Candid. So I definitely recommend checking out Fundraising Academy's website for free resources and webinars, especially if you're really interested in learning more about the cause selling education that we're going to be talking about today. So this training has been designed to be practically useful so that you can walk away with skills that you can apply to building a nonprofit's individual giving program. So this training is designed to prepare you to do the following: explain the importance of individual giving in a nonprofit's fundraising strategy, identify key steps for a successful individual giving program, and draft a plan to start or improve your annual individual giving program. We're going to be doing an activity during the session. So again, kind of reinforce what we're going to be talking about. And then at the end of today's presentation, I'm also going to be doing a demonstration of DonorSearch, which you can use to start your prospect research. And I'll be sharing some other resources as well that might be useful for you. But before we get started, I wanted to share a few definitions of some terms that we're going to be talking about today. So first up is fundraising program. And this is an organization's strategy, tactics, objectives, case, and needs in their entirety. So this is really your overarching fundraising plan. So what are you doing to bring funds into your organization? The next term is annual giving. And annual giving is annually repeating gift programs. So this is income. So income from annual giving is generally used for operating budget support. So that's one of the nice things about kind of individual giving programs is that you can really apply this to the general operating costs of your organization. Next is campaign. So this is just an organized effort to raise funds for a nonprofit organization. So oftentimes nonprofits will have several campaigns throughout the year. You may have multiple fundraising campaigns going on at one time, really depending on the size and capabilities of your organization. And then the last term is major gifts. And a major gift is a gift of significant amount. Keep in mind that the size of the gift may vary according to an organization's needs and goals. So a major gift at one organization may be $500. A major gift at another organization may be $20,000. So each organization will be a little bit different. And it's really kind of up to the organization how they define a major gift, but it's a significant amount for your organization. And these may be repeated periodically. I did include a link in your resource guide to a glossary of fundraising terms. So if you're interested in kind of exploring some more terms, or if there's something else you're unsure of, definitely check out that glossary. All right. So to get a sense of kind of where you all are with your individual giving at your organization, I have a poll for you that I'm going to launch now. So I'm curious if you currently have an individual giving program at your organization. So your options are yes, but we're updating it. Maybe you're in the process of creating one, so you haven't had one before, or maybe you haven't had one in a very long time. Maybe you don't have one at all, and that's why you're here, or maybe you're not sure. So go ahead and choose the option that best represents where your organization is with an individual giving program. And then I'll share the results once everyone participates. All right, looks like we have 100% participation. Awesome, thank you. So I'm going to share those results. All right, so it looks like a lot of you are in the process of updating your individual giving program. Awesome. And then the rest is kind of split between you're creating one or you don't have one or you're not sure. So I think you're all in the right place to head in the right direction. So thanks for participating in that. Right. So we're going to kind of set the stage a little bit here. And this graphic on this screen here probably looks familiar to anyone who attended our Introduction to Fundraising Planning workshop 2 weeks ago. But in that class, we really talked about the importance of creating stability, through diversifying your funding. And if you remember, we talked about how this river represents your organization with all these little streams feeding into the river. Implementing different fundraising strategies lessens the possibility of the river drying out if the flow from one income source begins to slow down or is suddenly eliminated. So for example, if your organization only receives government support and that government support ends, what's going to happen to your organization? So here's a sample of what your organization streams may look like. You may be getting money from individual donors, grants from foundations. You may have some government contracts as well. Each organization is going to be different, so your revenue streams will be different. So your river and streams may look different than another organization's rivers and streams. But you just want to remember that a strong river means a strong organization, and that the more diverse your funding sources are, the more stable your organization will be. And including individual giving as a funding stream can really strengthen your organization overall because, as you can see from this chart, the majority of charitable giving in this country comes from individuals. So just like with our other classes in this workshop series, we kind of started with some data. And anyone who attended the other two workshops knows that we had some nice charts, including this one in our fundraising planning workshop that just gives a breakdown of charitable giving in 2020. So as a reminder, if you take a look at the private sources of support for nonprofits in the US, you can see that despite what a lot of people may assume, foundations and corporations together account for only a modest proportion of charitable giving, and that the vast majority of private giving is coming from individuals. Again, this is people like you and me who are giving to their favorite nonprofits, causes, places of worship. So we're not just talking about wealthy people here. Oftentimes, wealthy people will set up their own foundations, and oftentimes that money will then fall into the foundation category. So it's really important to keep this chart in mind. I think all of you are here today because you're interested in engaging more with individuals because you know the importance of having them as part of your funding stream. Also, something to keep in mind is that charitable giving grew by over 10% in 2020, primarily thanks to donors giving gifts less than $100. So I think that's really interesting. So not only was individual giving growing, but you can also see that it wasn't just large gifts that were being given out. It was a lot of smaller gifts that individuals were giving. So these results are from the Fundraising Effectiveness Project, which is managed by the Association of Fundraising Professionals in collaboration with Giving Tuesday. And the Fundraising Effectiveness Project has a lot of really great reports and data about giving. There's a link in your resource guide. I definitely recommend checking out the additional charts they have. This is just a snapshot of some of them. But if you're really looking for some data to kind of see what individual giving looks like, this is a great resource to take a look at. Right. So now that we've looked at some data and we've kind of set the stage here, let's talk a little bit more about the psychology of giving. So I'm posing a question to all of you, and I'd love to hear your responses in the chat. Why do people give to nonprofits? So you can think about why people have donated to your organization. You can think about why you've donated to organizations, but why do people give to nonprofits? There are no wrong answers here. Feel free to share in the chat your thoughts. They believe in the mission, absolutely. Self-interest. People give that believe and want to support your cause. Part of the target community, passion for the cause, personal connection with the work. They want to make a difference. Absolutely. Someone asked them, ooh, Barbara gets a gold star for today. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. Tax deduction, yes. They enjoy the programs, for sure. So we're kind of seeing, a mix of things here. they believe in the mission and the work the organization is doing. Maybe they've participated or interacted with that organization in some way and they like what they've done. Maybe they know someone at the organization. Absolutely. So I really think it's important anytime we're talking about individual giving or working with individual donors to really start to think about, the psychology behind it. Why are people giving? So all of these responses are definitely right, for sure. But as Barbara pointed out, it's important to note that ultimately the number one reason a donor decides to give is because they were asked. So let that sink in for a minute. So while there are many reasons that motivate a donor to give, and many of which you all just brought up a minute ago, the tactical reason why they give is because they were asked. So a study that was done a few years ago found that for more than 85% of charitable donations, people gave because someone asked them to. But keep in mind that this isn't what motivates them to give or get involved. So the process is twofold. What is motivating them to get involved, and is someone engaging with them and asking them? So there's a link in your resource guide that talks about this study and the reasons behind donor giving. I definitely recommend checking those out. Again, I think it's really important to kind of really get in this headspace and think about the why before you start, jumping into the actual engaging with donors. I think it's going to make you a lot more successful. And knowing that people give because they were asked doesn't necessarily solve the question of how donors are approached by many causes and then choose which one to support. So it's one thing to know that donors give because they were asked, but I think what a lot of people are here for today, and a lot of the questions we get is about how they engage with those donors and get to the point where they feel comfortable asking them to support or get involved with their organization. So you may be wondering, how do I motivate donors to give, and how do I get to that opportunity to ask donors to give? So to get to that, today we're going to be talking about cause selling. So these two graphics show two versions of the fundraising cycle. So on the left is maybe a more traditional fundraising cycle. Probably heard something like this before. Have you heard we need money? We need money. Give us money. Please give us money. It's much more frantic and it's much more reactive. You're reacting to a situation. Maybe one of those funding sources dried up and you're now desperate for funds. Probably doesn't sound as inviting. It's a little bit desperate, and it may not be appealing to a lot of donors. On the right side, we have the cause selling cycle. So this approach is proactive and it aims to engage a donor in a long-term relationship. So instead of the focus being solely on money, the messaging around this approach centers the donor in the process. So you start with, here is what our organization does. Here's how it affects you. You ask them for support, and then you show the donor what their support helped accomplish. So hopefully you see the difference between these two approaches. Maybe your organization or other organizations you've worked with or been a supporter of before have fallen somewhere in these two cycles. But any initial thoughts about the difference between these two fundraising cycles? All right. Well, yeah, so Barbara shared that the traditional one is off-putting. Yes, I agree. Like I said, it feels a little desperate. It's not as engaging, probably not as rewarding to be a donor who's participating in the more traditional one. Yeah, so the cause selling one seems much more appealing. You're more connected with the donor, more welcoming, and it creates opportunity for connection. Absolutely. And that's what we're going to really be focusing in on today. is the cause selling cycle. So we're going to spend some time talking about what the cycle looks like in the 8 essential steps. So going through these steps will help good fundraisers become great fundraisers. So this cycle has 3 distinct phases. The first phase is all the work necessary to prospect for qualified potential donors. So this is going to include finding prospects, thinking about how you're going to approach them, and researching those prospects. Phase 2 is the face-to-face time that you spend with a prospective donor. During this phase, you'll get to know the donor better, you'll determine their interests, and you'll be able to share information about your organization. And then phase 3 includes everything after the gift is given. So the last phase is where you're going to make the ask and build a relationship with the donor after they've given you a gift. So you'll notice that the ask comes much later in the process and is only one step in the overall process. So I always like to point this out because when it comes to individual giving, I know a lot of people are very nervous about making the ask. But keep in mind that if you're using the cause selling method, you're not just going to be walking up to somebody and asking them for money, and then the transaction is over. The ask is really part of a larger process, and you'll have already built a relationship with this person before you've gotten to the ask. So, once you've gone through the earlier steps, it's going to feel much more natural. All right, so let's kind of get into these steps in more detail. And do keep in mind that these are not steps that you're just going to sit down one day and work through in a couple of hours. This is an ongoing process that will usually involve other team members at your organization, the executive director, board members, maybe program staff. So this shouldn't be thought of as a specific fundraising campaign, though you will certainly build in certain parts of this to your fundraising campaigns. Instead, this is an ever-evolving cycle with your donors. You'll want to keep in mind that depending on the donor or potential donor, you may be jumping in at different parts of the cycle. You're not always going to necessarily be starting at step 1 every time. So that's why we show these steps as a cycle or a circle and not a linear straight line with a beginning or an end. Okay? So keep that in mind as we're going through the steps. All right, so first step in the cycle is the prospecting step. So this is when you are finding the donor's name. So a few different places where you could get a donor's name. You could ask a board member. You could look at a similar organization's annual report. And you don't ever want to discount the people who are already associated with your organization. So thinking about people who are already giving, could they potentially give more? Maybe they haven't given in a while and you want to reactivate their interest in your organization. Also think about volunteers, or if you have the type of organization that has alumni, also thinking about engaging them. Okay, so this first step is just figuring out who could be a potential donor. The next step is to gather information that you might need to approach that donor. So you'll want to research each prospect to see what information you can learn about them. Have they given donations to your organizations in the past? This is especially important if you're thinking about re-engaging with a donor. Have they given to other similar organizations in the past? Or have they given to organizations that aren't similar? Do they have any particular hobbies or interests? Do they serve on a board or have their own foundation? So later when we'll be talking about DonorSearch for prospecting, you can get a sense of the type of information you can find from DonorSearch, but other resources include, Google search, LinkedIn, looking at news articles. Definitely, tap into your board members to see if they have any information about people that you're looking to engage with. One of the resources I'm going to pull up later on is a link to some prospect research tools that can help you, with this prospecting piece of the cycle. So those first 2 steps are phase 1. Okay, and again, if you're working with a name that a board member gave you, then you've already done the first piece, the prospecting piece. You're going to jump to the second piece, the pre-approach, and see if you can learn more about the person. All right, so for phase two, the first step in this, number 3, is the approach. So during this step, you will introduce or reintroduce your organization and yourself or leadership to the person. Again, the approach is not like, hey, do you want to give money to my organization? This is you're approaching them to introduce them to the work your organization does. Step 4 is the need discovery. And during this step, you're going to discover the donor's unique passions. This is where you get at the why. So why would this person want to support your organization or your mission? Or how do they want to get involved or be engaged with your organization? Step 5 is the presentation. And this is when you will have the opportunity to tell the story of your mission. So this may be part of a larger fundraising campaign. It may be an actual presentation that you give to potential donors. But regardless of the format, it's your opportunity to share what it is your organization does and really starts to get at the story behind who you are and why somebody might want to support your organization. All right, step 6 is the objection. So this is when you overcome potential roadblocks to giving. So you want to try to know what the objections might be before you get to the asking phase of the cycle. And this might be something that comes up during the need discovery phase, and it will help you strategize how to respond to those objections. And keep in mind that the objections I'm talking about here are not, oh, I can't talk right now, or I'm not available to come to your event. Instead, we're talking about objections a person might have to supporting your organization. So you can use this as an opportunity to educate or clarify your organization's mission or position. So for example, maybe somebody has supported your cause in the past, but they've only supported research that has gone into your cause. They haven't supported direct programming. So they may say, oh, we only support research, just as an example. So you could use this as an opportunity to, tell the organization how that research that they've supported has gone into, helping your clients, your constituents, and supported your mission. So again, it's an opportunity for you to educate the potential funder, or excuse me, potential donor, and get them to better understand your organization. All right. So we're now moving into phase 3 of the cycle. And the first step in that phase, number 7, is the ask. So at this point, you should have already developed a relationship with the donor. You might be the one to ask, but it might also be the executive director or the board member. Again, depends on your organization, depends on the relationship with that potential donor. But regardless, the potential donor should be fully aware of your mission, your values, of who you are, who your organization is, and they should be aware of why they would be interested in supporting your organization. Again, this is only one step in the cycle. Don't let it overwhelm you. And again, at this point, they have already had a chance to get to know your organization. They may have voiced some objections. You have been able to respond to them by educating them, and you may have won them over after you've responded to those objections. And if you are feeling uncomfortable with the ask, or if asking is new to you, then I definitely recommend practicing. Either do some role play with somebody at your organization, or a friend or a family member. It can be really helpful for making you feel more confident about what you would say in those types of situations. And then the last step in this cycle is stewardship. So this is your opportunity to follow up with the results to foster loyalty. So I really think this last step is really one of the most important ones, and definitely do not miss it. You should view a gift from a donor as the beginning of a relationship, not just a one-off transaction. Otherwise, we're getting more into that traditional fundraising cycle territory. This will just help you build a long-term relationship with this funder. So you should be thanking your donors and letting them know how their gift has helped your organization, telling them what you've been able to accomplish with their gift. So does anyone have any questions about any of these steps in this cycle? And while you're thinking of questions, I do just want to focus a little bit on the need discovery. So this is in that second phase of the cause selling cycle, and it's really at the heart of the 8 steps. So it allows you to uncover a donor's underlying motivations, needs, and priorities, and it can really help you understand why they want to give or get involved with your organization. So the right questions and active listening skills will really help carry you through the cause selling interview process. So from the pre-ask meeting to the solicitation and throughout the stewardship process. People get involved with nonprofits for a lot of different reasons, maybe because of family history or experience that motivated them. So really understanding why can help get at the heart of why this person wants to support your organization, as well as their capacity to give. And remember that the ask isn't always about asking for money, though that's obviously important and what most of you are probably here thinking about. But it's about asking your way to the gift, asking them questions like, why do you want to get involved? So does anyone have any questions about the different steps in the cycle? So someone said, seems potential donors would understand that an ask is coming from the beginning of contact. Yes, absolutely. And you're not trying to blindside anyone. Anytime you're kind of building a relationship with people in this way, I think they come to expect this at a certain point. And someone asked, could you speak more to the potential objections? Are they primarily about fit? Yeah, I think this is more about fit. It's about, whether this donor is interested in supporting this organization. It could be things like, well, I heard in the news that your organization, does this. And I don't know if I want to be associated with an organization that does X, Y, and Z, something like that. And that could be your opportunity to be like, yes, we know about those news articles. This is what we're doing to address those issues, things like that. So it could be objections about their overall fit with the organization, or it could be something specific about your organization. But again, it's your opportunity to educate that potential donor. It gives you an opportunity to kind of share maybe a little bit more insight about the organization that they might not be able to get just from looking at your website. So hopefully that answers your question. Any other questions about the cycle or any of the steps? Yep. So, Kit, I see you have your hand raised. If you want to unmute yourself, we can do that now. Give me 1 second. Okay, if you want to unmute yourself to ask a question.
Oh, there I am unmuted. It wouldn't let me at first. I really don't understand the prospecting stage. I don't understand how I find the individual who sometimes gives $5 to something. I don't understand how I get that from LinkedIn. I have no idea. I'm feeling very lost.
Sure. So yes, that's a good question. So I would say, don't kind of start small. So think about who is already giving to your organization. One of my favorite things to have people do is ask their board members to give them 5 names of people who might be interested in giving to their organization. And then you can start to do some research on them. You can look at organizations who are doing similar work. A lot of them have annual reports that list out people who have given to their organizations. But it's all goes into this relationship building piece of this. So it can be a little hard to, think of those donors who are giving to similar organizations. You might feel like, I don't know this person. I'm a little bit uncomfortable then kind of like creeping on them on the internet. So, start closer to home then. Like I said, start with your board members. Maybe you do an event where you have your current donors or volunteers bring one friend to that event. And then you'll have their names, and then you can maybe start doing a little bit more investigating into them. And if anyone else has any other suggestions for how to kind of start to think about where to get names from, you can certainly share that in the chat. This is obviously a little bit harder with newer organizations who don't have as many current donors. So it's a little bit harder to start with nothing and go from there. But like I said, you should at least have board members associated with your organization that can start to kind of kick off this process. And we'll be talking a little bit more about some prospecting tools in a bit. Any other questions about the cycle? Do people see how this differs from the traditional cycle? Do they see how they could maybe build in some of these components to their giving programs? So Barbara shared that some of their board members reach out to their networks for Giving Tuesday. Once someone donates, we have their name. Yep, absolutely. Tina shared, consider approaching individuals who benefit from your organization, especially if you're looking for small amounts. Absolutely. And that kind of ties into that need discovery, thinking about, why they might want to give to your organization, for sure. Yep, looking into local institutions. Yep. It's funny, I think a lot of people have a hard time with the ask part of this, but I agree. Sometimes the prospecting piece of this is really challenging, especially when you're first getting started. So thanks for bringing that up, Kit. All right. So to help you kind of start thinking through how you could build in these different steps into your individual giving program, we're going to do a little activity together using a shared Google Doc. So Jillian's going to share a link to the document in the chat. Once you click on that link, you'll have access to a Google document that all of you can edit. And then you're going to be adding some information to this document. So here's a little bit of background. We have a fictional situation here. So while at an event, you strike up a conversation with another attendee. We'll say her name is Sarah. During the course of your conversation, you learn that Sarah knows a board member at your organization. We briefly talk about the work your organization does, and Sarah seems really interested in your organization's work and mission. However, before the conversation goes further, Sarah has to step away, but she gives you her business card and tells you to stay in touch. So thinking through those three kind of different phases of the cycle, cause selling cycle, you might want to start to think about how you would engage Sarah with the goal of getting her to support your organization. So what would some of your next steps be? How would you start to build a relationship with Sarah? So in this shared Google Doc, type your thoughts and ideas into those different sections. So phase one, which is the prospecting and research. So where would you go from here to learn a little bit more about who Sarah is? Step two, the getting to know the donor. So what would you do to kind of get her more interested or invested in your organization? And then phase three, this is when you would be making the ask and stewarding the donor. So for phases 2 and 3, you may need to think about some theoretical ideas once you've gotten to know Sarah more closely and you've made the ask. But think through some ways that you might get to know her better and how you might ask and thank her if you are successful. And feel free to pull from examples that you've experienced as a donor or how your organization approaches donor relationships. So let's take like 7 minutes. And I'm going to, let's see here. I can share my screen, go back to the document so we can all see this together. Yeah, so it looks like a lot of you have already started putting in some ideas. Again, no wrong answers here. No points off for misspellings. um, all right. So this whole series has really been about diversifying your funding, hasn't it? And at the crux of that is fundraising planning. And we've talked in previous sessions about this already, and about how important it is to know where you are and where you want to go, and that having a plan is what's really going to help you get to where it is you want to go. So if your organization wants to include individual giving as a funding resource, or you want to grow that revenue stream, it should fit into your overall fundraising plan. So we talked about this before, but for anyone who wasn't in our previous class, or if anyone needs a refresher, just want to give you kind of a definition of what a fundraising plan is. But this is a living document which lays out specific fundraising tasks and strategies, including who will be responsible for completing them and the time frame of when they need to be accomplished. So ultimately, a successful fundraising plan will help an organization be proactive rather than reactive to their fundraising needs. So it's not enough to just say, we need more individual donors as part of our funding mix. While that may be true, you want to think about how that's going to fit into your overall fundraising plan and whether your organization has the capacity and capability to carry out that plan. Also, having a fundraising plan will make sure that everyone is on the same page, and it's going to help you set realistic goals. So maybe a board member is super excited about, one aspect of the fundraising plan, and they're like, we can raise $1 million doing this, but the development staff or the rest of the team is like, I don't know about that. So having a plan that everyone is aware of and agrees upon is going to help you set yourself up for success. So remember, just like I said, this is all a team sport. And so making sure everyone's involved in the planning process is going to be really important. So here's a sample strategy plan. So let's say our goal is to raise $10,000 from new and reoccurring donors by the end of 2022. So to do this, we'll first identify our strategy for building out our individual giving program. So in this case, we've decided to launch a virtual fundraising campaign. And once that strategy is in place, we'll identify steps we'll need to take to put the strategy into action. In this case, we'll start by researching prospects and designing a campaign. Then the board and staff will review a list of any major prospects and draft the campaign. Meanwhile, development staff will review and update their organization's GuideStar profile, which I'll talk more about in a minute. And then lastly, for at least 3 months, development staff will launch the campaign. And after the initial campaign, they will review what they've learned from the initial campaign and how they'll iterate from there. So I'm going to share a worksheet with you to help you develop your own fundraising strategy. So Jillian's going to pop a link to that in the chat, and I'm going to pull it up on my screen here. Okay, so this worksheet has 3 different tabs. The first one is the opportunity to assess your current strengths. So you want to think about your different revenue streams as they relate, in this case, to individuals. So we have new and occasional donors, event participants, reoccurring and annual donors, and then major donors. And then you want to think about kind of where you are with those different types of revenue streams. So are you on target? Do you think you're going to raise the amount of money you hope to from them? The caution is like, oh, we're not sure, or maybe one particular stream needs attention. So once you've kind of decided where you fall with each of these different types of donors, so we've decided that our new and occasional donors need attention, we can then go to this second tab. And this is where you'll really lay out your strategy for engaging with this particular revenue stream, in our case, new and occasional donors. So we have our first column here, which is our goal. So you can say, we want to raise $10,000 from new and occasional donors by X date. And then you'll list out your different strategies for making that happen. So for example, we'll build relationships with new and occasional donors that have personal connections to the organization. We've listed out our time frame for doing this. We've listed out the people responsible for this, so the development staff and board members. And then you also want to include how you are going to measure success or what your goal is. So maybe you want to personally connect with X number or more people. And then you have the different steps to help you meet that goal. Research potential prospects, review the prospects, create and execute an outreach plan. And for each of those steps, there's a person assigned to them, as well as a timeline. Our second strategy is to earn a GuideStar seal of transparency to help tell our story and share our impact. And again, we have a time frame, who is responsible, and the steps for making that happen. The next strategy is design and launch a virtual fundraising campaign to engage new and occasional donors. And again, just like with the other strategies, we've listed out the overall time frame, people responsible, how we'll measure success, and then more specifically, the steps and people responsible for each of those steps. And then the last tab is just kind of a blank one here so that you can kind of download this and create your own sample strategy. So this is a little bit similar for anyone who attended our Introduction to Fundraising planning workshop. We kind of did something similar for your overall fundraising, in which case we looked at individual donors, foundations, corporations, etc. This worksheet is really to think specifically about individual donors and break it down into the different types of donors that your organization either currently engages with or hopes to engage with. So we're not going to do anything with this particular worksheet today, but there is a link to it in your resource guide, and it can be really helpful for kind of prioritizing and planning your next steps for working with individual donors. So does anyone have any questions about that worksheet before we move on? All right. All right, so if not, we're going to kind of change gears a little bit here, and we're going to talk a little bit about GuideStar. So this is a really great element to build into your overall fundraising plan, but I would just want to kind of get a sense of where you all are with your GuideStar profiles. So I'm going to launch a poll. And I'm curious to know how familiar you are with your nonprofit's GuideStar profile. So either you are familiar with it, but you haven't claimed and updated your profile. Maybe you've already claimed your profile and earned a seal of transparency. Maybe you're not familiar with it at all, or maybe you have absolutely no clue what I'm talking about, in which case you'll learn more on the next couple of slides. All right, so everyone participated. Awesome, thank you. Okay, so it looks like we're a little split here. So about half of us are familiar with your profile and have earned a seal of transparency. That's awesome. If you'd like to share in the chat what seal you've earned, I'd love to see that. And then a few of you are not familiar or don't know what a GuideStar profile is. Oops, I'm sorry, I didn't share those results with you. Hopefully you can see them now. Awesome. So someone shared that they're up to silver and they're working on gold. Gregory shared that he had earned gold. That's awesome. Great. So for those of you who have no clue what I'm talking about, we're just going to spend a couple of slides here talking about what GuideStar is. But it's essentially a one-stop shop for anyone looking for information on nonprofits. And in many cases, that's going to be donors, so people who might be interested in giving to your organization. So your fundraising plan should be a comprehensive strategy. And to build on what we've already learned, claiming and updating your nonprofit profile on GuideStar is a free tool that you should have in your toolbox. It should be part of your overall strategy. It's a great way to share information about your mission and work with millions of potential donors and funders. So I'm sure you're all aware, nonprofits are required to file annual tax information with the IRS. So if your organization has 501c3 status and has submitted a 990 to the IRS, then you will be automatically included in GuideStar. And then you can easily claim your organization's profile and update it and share information that goes beyond IRS data and provides a fuller, more robust, publicly available snapshot of the work your organization does. And then as you complete your profile, you can earn seals of transparency, which indicate that you have key information on your profile. So you can earn a seal of when you earn a seal of transparency, like I said, you provide context beyond IRS data that's already included on the page. And you're going to give potential donors and funders more insight into the work that you do. And you're also going to stand out from other nonprofits in the database. So if your organization does not have a seal of transparency and you're an arts and culture organization and somebody searches GuideStar for arts and culture organizations, you're going to show up way at the bottom of the list. And the organizations that do have a seal of transparency are going to show up higher on that list. So what are the 4 seals? First, we have bronze, which you can earn by sharing your mission and basic contact information so that donors can find you. That one's really simple. Most people can probably do that one today without any issue. Next, we have silver, which you earn by providing programs information and brand details. So this is, adding a logo, telling more about what it is your organization does. We then have gold, which is earned by sharing financial and leadership information to help you gain trust and support. And this is your opportunity to share demographics about your organization, about your leader and board members. And then lastly is the platinum seal of transparency. So this is the highest level seal that you can earn. And in order to earn a platinum seal, you must share how you measure success at your organization. So what do your results look like? What is the impact or difference that your work is making? So in order to get to platinum, you have to first achieve the other 3 seals. So why does all this matter? Well, it turns out transparency pays off. So independent academic research reveals that transparent nonprofits receive more contributions and were stronger organizations. So Villanova University and University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee researchers compared nonprofits that earned GuideStar seals of transparency to those that did not. And nonprofits that earned a seal averaged 53% more in contributions the following year than organizations with no seal. The research also found organizations that elect to be more transparent had stronger performance across a range of governance, financial, and operational dimensions. So again, bottom line, transparency pays off. The more information you can share about your organization and the good work you're doing, the more interested the donors or potential donors are going to be in your organization. So it's really easy to claim your profile. I'm sure anyone who's earned a seal already can share in the chat a little bit more about the process. But you'll just need to create a free account on the GuideStar website, update the information, and then you can publish it. I do recommend if you have an organizational email address like @freelibrary.org, use that email address. If you're just using a Gmail address or something similar, it will take a little bit longer for you to get access to your nonprofit's account. And then if you have any questions, there's a really great help section on the GuideStar website. You can also reach out to me. I'm happy to troubleshoot or answer any questions that you have. And then I do want to mention a promotion that Candid is currently doing called Go for the Gold. So if you're small nonprofit, meaning you have a revenue of less than $500,000, if you earn a gold seal of transparency between now and the end of the year, then you can get a free subscription to Foundation Director Online Essential for 1 year. So everyone should update their profiles, but this is just some additional incentive if you're looking for an additional incentive. So awesome. Looks like somebody in the chat has achieved platinum. That's super exciting. Congratulations. So does anyone have any questions about GuideStar? I know we've talked about it a lot in these past couple of classes, but it really is such an important and useful tool to sharing your organization's story and mission. I know a past attendee to one of our classes said that she really liked going through the process of updating the profile because it just reaffirmed to her all the great work that their organization is doing. So it can be a fun little exercise to go through the process. So Luana, what do you mean? Where did what come from? Where did GuideStar come from?
Yeah, is it just a free floating thing that was invented some short time ago, or is it connected?
Yeah, so I don't know how long it's been around. It's been around definitely since the early 2000s for sure, maybe older than that. But it is now part of Candid. So when Foundation Center and GuideStar merged to create Candid, Candid kind of absorbed GuideStar. But basically they wanted to make it easier for people to kind of research nonprofits in these 990s, which you can certainly get from the IRS's website. But if anyone's been to the IRS's website, you're probably know that it's not super easy to find some information. And then over the years, it certainly has evolved. It kind of, I think originally started as more of like a storing house for these 990s. And then they kind of have given nonprofits the opportunity to claim their profiles and provide some additional context. So it was originally based just really on IRS data, but it's gone beyond that, just to help bring more transparency to the philanthropic and nonprofit sector. Any other questions about GuideStar? And if anyone does achieve a seal of transparency, feel free to email me and let me know. I'm always excited to hear when people do that. All right. So the last kind of section of today's class is prospect research using DonorSearch. So I like to give people, something that they can walk away with, and hopefully learning a little bit more about DonorSearch can, be something kind of tangible that you can use after today's session. So the Regional Foundation Center offers access to DonorSearch, which is a philanthropic database that you can use to research donors. DonorSearch provides accurate and actionable information that identifies prospective major gift donors, annual fund donors, and planned gift donors based on philanthropy and wealth analytics. So DonorSearch is a resource that any nonprofit can subscribe to, but we do provide free access to it through the Regional Foundation Center. And if you're interested in getting a prospecting tool like this for your own organization, there are so many out there. We used to subscribe to Wealth Engine. We switched to DonorSearch a couple years ago. And if you're interested in using any of these, certainly come in and test out DonorSearch. But you can usually get free trials from these different companies as well. So DonorSearch is only available through the Regional Foundation Center on site at the Parkway Central Library. So you do need to physically be in our space to use this resource. We don't provide remote access to it. Additionally, you do need to use one of our computers to use the resource. So you cannot use your own laptop. So if you come in to use DonorSearch, just let the person on the reference desk know that you'd like to use DonorSearch. They'll give you a computer reservation, and then they'll get you logged in to DonorSearch. I will also add that if you need one profile from DonorSearch, maybe 2 profiles, you can email me that person's name, and I'm happy to send you their profile. So I'm going to pull up the DonorSearch website as well as show you some other tools and resources that might be helpful for you as you're using DonorSearch and doing prospect research. So, okay. So the first thing I want to mention, and I did include a link to this in your resource guide, is that DonorSearch right on their website has this industry guides section. So these are really helpful resources for anyone who's new to prospect research and individual donors. So these different guides, so for example, we have prospect research here. You can click learn more, and they have a whole guide. You know, what is prospect research? What is wealth screening? And it kind of goes into all these different sections and provides just a lot of definitions and information. So if this is all like really new to you, I think these guides are super helpful for just kind of learning more like what the lingo is and what this whole process looks like. So definitely recommend checking out those guides. Also on the DonorSearch website under resources, they have a webinar section and they have a lot of really great webinars on all things related to donors. So for example, they have this one, use wealth screening to focus on the right potential donors. They have one that's coming soon. I like this one, fearless fundraising, the secrets to overcoming your fear of asking for money. So yeah, lots of great things. And then they also will put recordings on here as well. So definitely check those out. And then another resource guide for doing prospect research. So last year we did an introduction to prospect research class. That workshop was led by 2 local prospect researchers, one who works for the Science History Institute and one who works for the Art Museum, the Philadelphia Art Museum. And so they put this amazing guide together of tools for prospect research. So it is 18 pages long. They have books, they have websites, really just comprehensive tool for doing prospect research on individuals. A lot of the stuff in here is free. Some are paid resources. So just note that. So I would definitely recommend checking that out. We'll definitely have them back here soon. There's a link to this guide in your resource guide. So yeah, definitely hope to have them back soon so we can kind of cover this information all again. All right, so now we have DonorSearch. So there are 2 kind of main searches that I'm going to talk about today. And when you're first logged into DonorSearch, the default is the integrated search. So that's what we're looking at right here. So you're going to use this search if you have a name that you want to look up. So again, maybe that your board members gave you 5 names. Maybe you want to look up our friend Sarah, who we met at that event. Whoever it is, you're going to use this if you already have somebody's name. Now, when you're building your search, you'll notice there's a couple of asterisks. So you will have to include a first name, a last name, and a state. If you have additional information like a street address, a spouse's name, under advanced fields, there's things like employer or business address. If you have those pieces of information, they can be really helpful, especially if the person has a common name. You want to make sure that you are looking at the profile for the correct person. What I usually tell people to do the first time they use this is look up somebody they already know. So either look up yourself or look up a donor or a board member. I think it will just give you a sense of how accurate the information is in here. Keep in mind, not everything in here is 100% accurate. It is still a place on the internet. They do rank the information, the results they give you. So if they're not confident that this is the right person, they'll let you know. So for our sample search, I'm going to look up one of the Free Libraries board members. We're going to put Robert Heim. And then I'm going to include the state of Pennsylvania. So that's the bare information that I need. Once I've put that in, I can click search. Oops, sorry, I got logged out. Let's try that again. Put in Robert Heim in Pennsylvania. and click search. Okay. So he has a common name. So we're getting a lot of different hits for this one. So, maybe you know the person's spouse's name, maybe you know their address. In this case, I'm looking for the Robert Heim in Philadelphia. So I'm going to select that one. I'm going to just click on that little radio button and then click search. And then what happens is over here on the right-hand side, the person's name is going to show up and then a link to view their profile. So I'm going to click on that now. A new tab is going to open up with their profile. So at the top of the page, we kind of have a snapshot here. And anytime you have any questions about what this information means, there's little question marks. It's taking a second to load. That will let you know, what does this mean? What does target based on giving mean? What does charitable giving mean, etc. So this is kind of a little bit of a snapshot of this person. We can see that he's done a lot of charitable giving, a lot of political giving. We can see he owns a lot of real estate, etc. And then as we scroll through the page, we'll see this profile summary on the left-hand side. So these are the different sections of the profile, and we can click on any of these to jump right to these different sections. I'm just going to kind of scroll through though and show you what we have. So the first section is social discovery. So a lot of times they'll pull in if the person has a LinkedIn profile, they'll pull that in, and you'll be able to see their LinkedIn profile right from here. Next is crowdfunding. So this is any information that we might have about any crowdfunding campaigns or peer-to-peer fundraising campaigns that this individual has donated to. So you'll notice here that the listed donor's name is Eileen Kennedy, which is his spouse's name. But then if we look over here on the right-hand side, the score, it's very low. So they're not super confident that this is the correct Eileen Kennedy. So something to keep in mind. And you can also, the default is all entries, but you can change it to high quality if you want, and you'll see that there are no high quality entries for that particular section. We then have charitable giving. So this is the section a lot of people are interested in. So this is going to list out the gifts that this person has given out. And we can see the organization that received the gift, where they're located, the gift type, the year it was given, and then a range. So usually you're not going to see a specific amount, and that's because most of this information is being pulled from annual reports, which a lot of times will list out gifts in ranges. You can see we have a lot here. Scrolling through. I'm just going to jump to the next section, which is political giving. So political giving is really important to note because, as you can see here, it's one of the top 4 predictors of future charitable giving, especially if the individual has given over $2,500. I also think this is an interesting section to look at because you can get a sense of the types of politicians or campaigns that this person is donating to. So that might give you a sense of maybe their political leanings, which may have an effect on how you approach them or whether or not they might be a good fit for your organization. So political giving is listed there. Next, we have real estate. So these are properties that an individual owns. And this information they're pulling from Zillow. Grant giving foundation. So if the person serves on a board, that will be listed here. You'll notice here that these 2 foundations, are listed in Toledo, Ohio, and they are low quality match. So these probably aren't associated with the person that we're looking for. The next section is grant seeking nonprofits. So this is information about nonprofits that are associated with this person in some way. So for example, if I clicked on the Philadelphia Orchestra Association, we can see that the person that we search for served as a board member at that organization. Next section is Database USA business information. So if the person is an executive or works at a business, this could give you some more insight into the businesses associated with them. Any areas that are grayed out means we don't have information in that particular section. And then I always like to show people this section, the relationships, because it's going to show other people that might be kind of associated with that person in some way. Maybe they serve on the same board as that person, or they're associated with a similar nonprofit. So each person's profile is going to provide a different level of information depending on who they are. So this is a kind of well-known lawyer, philanthropist here in Philadelphia, a lot of information. If we were to plug in my name, a lot less information. So do keep that in mind. There isn't a super easy way to extract information from DonorSearch, I will say. You can go to this profile options drop down and go to print. And then you have the option, if you click on print again, then you have the option to save as a PDF if you're using Google Chrome. So that's one way you can kind of save an individual's profile. But there isn't a way to like directly email you yourself information from DonorSearch. So do keep that in mind. So any questions about that particular search? Yes. So can you search by interests or causes? Yeah. So that's what I'm going to get to next. So this integrated search that I just showed you, this is what you use when you already have the person's name. So I'm going to close this tab. So the other way you can search is this prospect generator. So for this, you have two options. You can either type in the name of an organization, or you can search by a category. So for example, I could search for arts, culture, and humanities. I can choose the location. So I will put in Pennsylvania. So you can put in a zip code. The zip code doesn't super matter because the radius is only 50 or 100. So you can basically put in any zip code in Philadelphia and you'll capture all the arts and culture organizations. And then I'll click search. For some reason, the default is to show you the oldest information first. I'm not sure why that is. So I always resort this by year. And then you can see the organization's name, the number of gifts, some of the gifts, where they're located, and then we have the interest. There's also a link here to where they're getting this information from. So as I said before, this is usually some kind of annual report. So a lot of times organizations will post these on their websites, but instead of having to go to each and every one of those individuals' websites, you have this nice little list right here. You can also click, well, Philadelphia Orchestra, Youth Orchestra came up first, so we're going to click on that one. You can click on that and then you can see the name of the donor. Keep in mind, some of these will be foundations, but usually once you click through a couple of pages, you'll start to see some individual names coming up on the list. But this is also helpful for just seeing what foundations are giving to this organization as well. So trying to get to a person so I can see. Let me go back. Oops. Okay, let's look at this one because it has, yeah, so we have some specific names here, so that makes it a little bit easier. You can click on a person's name and search for the person, and then you'll be able to see information about them and information about the gifts that they've specifically given. So not only have they given to Opera Philadelphia, but this person is also given to the Academy of Music and the Franklin Institute. So the prospect generator can be really useful if you don't have a person's name and you want to do a little bit more research on similar organizations or interests or cause areas. So that's DonorSearch. I always tell people searching DonorSearch is easy. It's what you do with that information that's a little bit more challenging, and how you start to kind of engage with that donor and move into the second phase of the cause selling cycle. So I just have a couple of slides to show you to wrap up. We're almost out of time, so I want to be mindful of that. So if any of you are interested in practicing presenting information about your organization or making that ask, then I invite you to come to our upcoming Lunch and Learn session called Pitch Yourself. So this is open to anyone, nonprofits, business owners, job seekers, but we're going to be talking about what makes a good pitch, different elements of a good pitch, and then you're going to have the opportunity to practice your pitch with other attendees in the class. Plus, this is going to be our first in-person workshop since 2020. So we're pretty excited about that. But you can check out the details for that and all of our upcoming events on our website, freelibrary.org/nonprofit. I've also included links in your resource guide to some self-paced learning workshops that Candid offers related to individual donors. So one is practical strategies for finding new donors. There's one on cultivating relationships with donors, and then also how to start a major gifts program at your organization. So that's all I have for you today. Jillian is going to share a link to the program evaluation. If you don't have time to fill it out now, I will include that in the follow-up email. But if anyone has any questions, I'll stick around for a few minutes to answer them. And if you do need to go, thank you so much for being here. Look forward to seeing you at another workshop.